What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I thought I would give you a very quick kind of rundown on my thoughts about this week's episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. The episode felt like a little bit of a filler, so I don't have that many, except, starting at the top, I feel as though Latoya and Kenya might be too mean of a duo together. It seems like they bring out the meaner side of one another, and we already know that Kenya has a mean streak, so it's not the best influence on her personality. I didn't like them continuing to clown Drew's wig. Drew was a nice girl. She never did anything to them when they already started the other episode, so I didn't appreciate it continuing this episode. Then they decided to take photos for online dating profiles they wanted to create as they work towards figuring out their separation from their husbands. I should say actually though it was Latoya who wanted to do all of this. Kenya was like, no, very how do you say, apprehensive, and she ultimately did wind up posing for the photos though, but still. Porsha talks about the breakdown of her relationship with Dennis and how she's been compartmentalizing their roles so that she just understands him as a co-parent versus an ex-boyfriend or someone she has feelings for, or whatever. She also talked about being released from jail from her latest protest. I talked about this in episode 1 of the show, that I kind of fast forward through the protest scenes. I'm sorry, it was already hard to live through this stuff the first time watching it all play out, and so it's not entertainment to me, so I don't like watching all of this go down. While I was fast forwarding, I saw another scene of the latest unfortunate victim of police brutality, what happened with him, and I was like, this is triggering for people. It really is, and I don't like watching it. I know that it's important to see and stuff, but for me, it just hurts my heart too much to watch it. So that's a quick tidbit on that. Anyway, she is in the car with her sister Lauren and her friend Tanya on their way to her newest friend's house. Her newest friend's name was Fallon, and she is super rich, y'all. That was a mansion if I've ever seen one. I don't remember Porsha's relationship with this girl. If you can let me know in the comments, that would be amazing. So they do head on over there, and we meet Fallon's husband, and I was like, this kind of looks like one of those African sugar daddy situations, Nigerian sugar daddy situations that Porsha was trying to lock down for herself. If you guys recall, around 2016, I want to say, Porsha was allegedly sleeping around with rich Nigerian, old men, I'm talking 80s level old, and they were buying her Rolls Royces and stuff like that, and it was very public. Even TMZ wrote about it, and she unfortunately could not lock any of them down, so she was left with a Rolls Royce and that she had to sell off or something like that, and a couple of purses, Hermes bags. But this girl secured the man, and he's not 80 years old or anything like that, so interesting. The girls had a really good time hanging out in the backyard. Fallon's husband was watching them from the other side of the backyard, which was quite funny to me. I'm like, this big old mansion, and you have nothing better to do than to watch these girls swim, frolic in the pool, I guess. Anyhow, we then get over to Drew and her husband talking about buying their first house. Drew keeps talking about how it's our house and blah blah blah, and her douche of a husband kept trying to make it seem like it was only a him thing. I'm gonna talk to my lawyer, I'm closing on my this, my that, my financials, and it was just so this guy is just such a bad partner in my opinion. He is not emotionally intelligent at all. I think he's constantly negging her, and it's very hard to watch. Drew talked about how although she is appreciative of him being a great provider for the family, she didn't want to be a kept woman or anything like that, and unfortunately, he's treating her like she is, even though she did have a successful acting career and stuff, so she does have her own money. And she talks about how it was a joint decision. So I don't know why the husband was so obsessed with saying me. I don't like this guy, and I really hope that being on the show and watching back the way he treats her and the way people are responding to him treating her opens up her eyes that she does deserve better and she can do better, and that they do need intensive treatment for whatever kind of dynamic it is that they've got going on, because it is anything but healthy in my humble opinion. After they talk about the new house in their old house, they decide to drive on over to look at the new house, and on the way there, Drew tells her husband that she has hired a marriage counselor to help them work out through these kinds of communication issues like the one I was just talking about, and he just goes into straight paranoia mode. He's like, oh, so you hired her? Does that mean she's gonna be biased against me? She's gonna be looking for the worst of me, blah blah blah. And he also had another instance of that when Drew's mom, who was a preacher, was talking about how she prepared a sermon about how something a sharp tongue, and he's like, why is this about me? You're always coming for me, blah blah blah. He's just so freaking antagonistic to people. Like it just puts me off so much. So I really hope that things improve over there for Drew, because it's sad to watch women in these kinds of relationships, you know? And speaking of sad, Cynthia, Mike, and her sister Mallory all go out to look at one of the wedding venues the wedding venue that Cynthia wanted to host their 10/10/2020 wedding at. And, you know, Mike asks a good question about, you know, what's going to happen if the guidelines change? Can we fit 250 people? Should we have 250 people in here? And Cynthia just kept having like a hissy fit over it, as if people are not dying in this pandemic. I was very annoyed at how selfish and childish and immature she was being. Again, Cynthia, you're 50 plus. This is your second wedding. This is your man's like third, fourth wedding. You guys, your friends aren't spring chickens either. This is a virus that mainly, you know, has detrimental consequences for people within these kinds of age groups, especially people who have underlying health issues or who have like weight issues or whatever. So is it really this necessary? I was team Mike on this about like, it doesn't matter. You don't need 250 people. Cynthia claims that she wanted it to be so big for him because he never had a big wedding with all of those other ex-wives, but he clearly is fighting against it. He doesn't want it. And if he didn't do it the first 3 times, it's clearly not his thing, girl. I mean, they talked about all of these like safety measures they would put in place to make sure that, like, you know, it was as safe as possible, but the safest coronavirus wedding is like an elopement or like a 5-10, you know, person wedding, like not a 250 person wedding. And we already saw people were taking off their masks, you know, they were bored of that by mid-ceremony. And of course, when you're eating, no one's wearing a mask, so all that hot air, you know, is just circulating in the building and stuff. So there was no way it was going to be safe and stuff. So to me, it was a bit of a joke that they were talking about mask this, mask that. It doesn't matter if at the end of the day, we're all going to be eating dinner in this huge room of 200 and something people, maskless. Anyway, on the way back home from the walkthrough, they have like a bigger fight about this, about how Mike doesn't need all of this pomp and circumstance, and he actually gets so pissed off at her and like her insistence on this huge wedding in this particular venue in this particular date that he just takes the camera. He's like, I can't do this anymore, and he takes off all of the cameras. You guys, what did you think about this week's episode of the Real Housewives of Atlanta? Am I just going through the SAD and the what do you call it, stir craziness, cabin fever of being at home all the time? Or was it a filler episode that just left nothing to be desired? Make sure to let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.